To commemorate the introduction of electric trams 100 years earlier, Trolleybus 72 returned to the streets of Maidstone on the 26th of May 2004. Together with other vintage vehicles, it was then towed into the heart of the town on the actual centenary date, the 14th of July. Wearing its distinctive golden ochre and cream livery, 72, one of 4 trolleybuses to have survived, offered passers-by a timely reminder of when electrically powered vehicles had served their town. Situated at the limit of navigation on the Medway, Maidstone dates back to medieval times, when river-based wharves handled everything from wool and sand to coal, iron and timber. Eventually industries such as brewing, light engineering, paper making and food processing were also developed. The coming of the railway in 1844 resulted in a rapid growth in population, which in turn led to demands for some form of local public transport. However, the first 3-foot 6-inch gauge electric tram route did not start running between the High Street and Barming until the 14th of July 1904. This was followed by lines to Lewes and Towville. Service was provided by 17 similar Preston-built cars mounted on Brill 21E trucks and powered by 2 25-horsepower motors. None ever received top covers. Memorable oddities included this Preston-built one-man demi-car, used mostly on the lightly trafficked Towville route from 1909 to 1919. After being sold in 1928, the body was rescued many years later for preservation. Another one-off was this fearsome-looking water car. Nicknamed the Dreadnought and built principally by Mountain and Gibson, it dated from 1908. It was used as a works car and to water the dusty streets until the early 20s. In 1924, the corporation started to develop a network of bus routes, the first vehicles all being single-deckers with chassis by local firm Tilling-Stevens. These were petrol electrics with a variety of Beadle-built bodies. In the mid-20s, it was decided to replace the life-expired trams. As late as 1926-7, the old 3-arched Medway Bridge would be widened and rebuilt, complete with new tram tracks. However, shortly after, the Barming trams were replaced by trolleybuses, as from the 1st of May 1928. Service was provided by 8 trackless trolley vehicles, numbers 11 to 18, which were the first 6-wheelers built by the Ipswich firm Ransom, Sims and Jeffries. The fleet numbers simply carried on from the early motorbuses. This consecutive numbering policy continued virtually unbroken for the next 50 years. This towing lorry was another Tilling-Stevens. Although remembered for its petrol-electric motorbuses, the firm had built trolleybuses for places such as Wolverhampton, although it failed to establish a firm footing in this market. They did, however, demonstrate this petrol-electric trolleybus chassis in 1930. The last 4 Tillings were delivered in 1932-3. After passing through various hands, the Tilling-Stevens factory would finally close in 1977. On this diagram, the trolleybus route is shown in green and the remaining tram services in white, both these lines terminating at the Cannon. The tracks paralleling the trolleybus route were retained for depot access. The trolleybuses operated for just under 2 miles between Queen's Monument and Barming, passing Tilling-Stevens single-decker No. 1 and a Maidstone and District Leyland TD1. The big six-wheelers were named pedallers. It took the driver 9 depressions of the power pedal to reach the top speed of 18 miles an hour. Approaching the terminal point at the top end of the High Street. Having offloaded on the north side, the trolleys looped round the Queen's Monument prior to loading on the south side of the High Street. One of the first Tillings can be seen in the background. Resplendent in their predominantly brown and white livery, these big 63-seaters must have seemed the height of luxury compared with the 48-seater open-top trams they had just ousted. The title, Maidstone Corporation Transport Department, had replaced the original Maidstone Corporation Light Railways in 1926. Another view of a Maidstone and District TD1. Note the overhang on the booms of the trolleybus. The Palace Cinema still exists today. Here Inspector Fred Enfield had supervised departures. On average, the trolleys ran approximately every 7.5 minutes. Behind, another glimpse of a 1924 Tilling. Powered by twin-type 60-65 horsepower motors, the new trolleys tackle the steep climb up Tonbridge Road with ease. Away from the busy central area, the tram routes had been single track with passing loops. Tonbridge Road Depot housed trams from 1904, buses from 1925 and trolleybuses from 1928, all 3 modes coexisting between May 1928 and February 1930. These tracks over the widened Medway Bridge were used only by cars working to and from the depot. The lightly trafficked Towville trams were replaced by 4 Leyland Lions as from the 1st of August 1929, whilst the trams to Lewes gave way to trolleybuses as from the 12th of February 1930. The trackless now worked across town, from Barming Fountain Inn to either Lewes or Grove Road, the terminal point on a new branch up Sutton Road. This basic service pattern would survive for some 37 years. To operate the extended 5-mile network, the corporation took delivery of numbers 23 to 29, 56-seaters built by English Electric and powered by 80 horsepower twin-type motors. These had slightly more streamlined bodies and differed from the other six-wheelers in minor details. This one is preceded by one of the 1929 Leyland Lions, all of which had Ransom, Sims and Jeffries 31-seater bodies. On the motorbus front, the first double-deckers were 14 oil-engine Crossleys delivered at intervals between 1934 and 1940, most of which also had Crossley bodies. During the Battle of Britain, Maidstone suffered damage during several air raids, especially during the latter part of 1940. To cope with increased wartime demand came 5 Sunbeam W trolleybuses with Park Royal utility bodies, delivered during 1943-4. As well as 9 Guyarab motorbuses delivered between 1942 and 1945. These had a variety of utility-style bodies. During 1946-7, delivery was taken of 12 Sunbeam W4s, numbers 63 to 72. These had 56-seater Northern Coach Builders bodies. The 3-axle trolleybus era ended during 1948. As from the 22nd of May 1947, the wiring in Barming was extended half a mile from the Fountain to the Bull. This was a town with a fondness for naming termini after local hostelries. During the late 40s, 9 Daimler CVG6s were added. These had a mix of 56-seater bodies by Northern Coach Builders and Brush. They were also the last vehicles where the fleet and registration numbers were matched. At Barming, brush-bodied number 81 of 1949 loops round the War Memorial in 1951, passing utility-bodied Sunbeam number 55 of 1943. The Daimler would be scrapped in 1964 and the trolleybus rebodied in 1960. A planned new trolleybus route to serve Shepway Estate was abandoned and an order for new trolleybuses cancelled. These views date from 1951. A rare sequence of one of 3 Daimlers hired to London Transport during 1949-50. Despite the decision not to proceed with new extensions, this was still very much a trolleybus town, as can be seen in this delightful road safety film, which follows the adventures of a young cyclist sent from cherry tree stores to deliver eggs. Shot sometimes in the very early 50s, it provides several tantalising glimpses of buses and trolleybuses. Look especially for the post-war sunbeams in their highly attractive livery. The rude lady tumbles off the trolleybus outside Rawlins the opticians. Later in the 50s, the rise in private cars would cause ever more congestion, especially in the old historic town centre, with lines of traffic struggling through the heart of the town on the trunk A20. When the Southern Counties Touring Society paid a visit in 1953, they were welcomed by General Manager J. Bamford, who would shortly be succeeded by Mr. Kershaw, who would then remain in post for over 20 years. At Lewes, 2 post-war W4s. Each is wearing a different version of the predominantly ochre livery introduced in the early 50s. Also the simplified fleet name Maidstone Corporation, the coat of arms and the ornate fleet numerals. The Crossleys were now the oldest vehicles in the fleet. Maidstone and District had opened the country's first ever purpose-built bus station in 1922. In 1951, their attempts to take over the corporation's transport had been finally rejected. To bring the wires to the fringes of yet further new housing, as from the 21st of June 1954, the Sutton Road route was extended from Grove Road to Nottingham Avenue. Overall route mileage was now just under 6. Using this elderly 1931 Guildford, owned by Enterprise of Kenton, the Southern Counties Touring Society revisited Maidstone on the 3rd of October 1954. Their route from London was by way of Chatham. On arrival, members boarded number 84, one of 2 1945 row-bodied Carrier W4s, acquired from Llanelly in 1952 and placed in store. Both entered service during 1955. They had semi-utility bodies and 85 horsepower motors. on Nottingham Avenue turning circle. This served the eastern fringes of Shepway Estate. A balmy sequence at Barming the Bull. Most departures from here went across town to Lewes. These early 1955 colour views show trolleys working between the Fountain and Nottingham Avenue, limit of the wiring on Sutton Road. This vehicle is in virtually overall ochre. When the Touring Society returned on the 18th of March 1956, their purpose was to ride the last of the ageing Crossleys, now scheduled for withdrawal. The newer examples, like 45, had been fitted with Gardner engines in the early 50s. At the Wheatsheaf, a switch was made onto ex-Llanelly 83. Between 1956 and 1963, Maidstone purchased a total of 26 Leyland Titan PD2s with Birmingham-style tin-fronted Massey bodies. This 61-seater number 11 entered service in 1958 and would be withdrawn shortly after passing to Maidstone Borough Council in 1974. Number 1 of 1956 would be sold off in 1971. Filmed on the occasion of the Touring Society visit on the 12th of April 1959, it is in its original livery. At the depot, participants boarded one of a pair of ex-Brighton Wayman-bodied BUTs for a trip under wires not yet open to the public. After transferring the booms at Nottingham Avenue, 51 made the first ever passenger carrying trip over the new mile-long unidirectional Parkwood loop, built to serve parts of the burgeoning estate. Intriguingly, nearly everything on view was second-hand: the vehicle, the overhead equipment and the traction poles. Cost-effective for Maidstone, but also clear evidence that elsewhere the tide was turning against the trolleybus. The two Brightons with 120 horsepower motors dated from the early 50s. After traversing Parkwood, the power was switched off and the party reboarded number 1 with its encircled coat of arms. On the 4th of May 1959, the new extension was opened to the public, overall mileage now just topping 7. These views were taken a month after the opening. Scenes on Brishing Lane, only used by trolleys for a very short while. In June, 5 Wayman-bodied Sunbeam Ws dating from 1947 were acquired from Maidstone and District. By September, all these 95 horsepower ex-Hastings vehicles would be running in their new home. With so many developments, the Touring Society was soon back. The Brighton pair, which had retained their original fleet numbers, were both in service by June 1959. Looping through the Parkwood estate, the extension catered for scores of new flats and houses, providing a direct link into the centre of town. In mid-1959, the fleet consisted of 26 buses and 26 trolleybuses, an all-time peak for the latter. Although small and compact, the trolleybus system was always a firm favourite with enthusiasts. During a visit in the late summer of 1959, Phil Tapp made this remarkable film, capturing all operating types in a rich variety of locations. Haynes Corner. The buildings in the background were demolished in 1960-61 to enlarge the entrance into King Street. Descending Gabriel Hill. Ex-Brighton 52 is seen by Granada House on Lower Stone Street. The booms twist and turn as the driver passes cars parked on Upper Stone Street. At the junction with Old Toville Road. Plains Avenue. With a view of the Oast houses, subsequently demolished to make way for a block of maisonettes. Wheatsheaf Junction, with a trolley outbound for Lewes and a Daimler heading for town. Action now along Lewes Road. First, a Maidstone and District Leyland PD2 and a wartime Sunbeam past the fire station. Near the Swan Public House. Close to the Papermaker's Arms, with further Maidstone and District vehicles, including this Beagle integral rebuild. Between 1959 and 1967, the corporation rented the former tram depot at Lewes as a storage facility. The last half mile of wiring lay within Maidstone Rural District Council. Filtat's coverage of the Barming section starts at the Cannon, where 71 takes the sharp bend from Mill Street onto the High Street to pick up passengers for the 2-mile trip over the Medway and up Tonbridge Road. West Station, and the start of the mile-long climb up Tonbridge Road. Hartnett Street with ex-Brighton 52. Ex-Hastings 87 at Cherry Tree Road Junction. Filtat completed his coverage at the Fountain, limit of the original 1928 wiring. Arrival of the various second-hand vehicles meant the 5 wartime sunbeams could be withdrawn during 1958-9. Then the following year all received new row bodies. On their return, the 2 unpopular Llanellis went for scrap. In July 1939, the 2 principal railway routes into London via Aylesford and via Malling had been electrified by the then Southern Railway. These fascinating 1947 sequences start with a 2-Hal electric leaving Maidstone East for London. Next, a steam-hauled connecting train arrives from Ashford. The loco was something of a rare bird, one of only a handful of former Southeastern Chatham 064 tanks. Built principally for outer suburban services, these J-class have been regular performers on through Ashford-Maidstone Victoria trains until July 1939. Since then, they continued to work the Ashford section until sent for scrap. The 064 is in the Southern short-lived post-war livery, which would disappear following nationalisation. Steam to Ashford survived until electrification in October 1961. In June 1961, the Paddock Wood Maidstone West line had also been electrified. Until then, auto-fitted push-pull trains, usually hauled by former South Eastern Chatham 044 tanks, had been in charge. A slow freight trundles through West Station towards Gravesend. To this day, evidence remains of the Old Bay platform used by the auto trains until the 12th of June 1961. Views of the auto trains on a rather grim day in the late summer of 1959. On the day before electrification, the Locomotive Club of Great Britain ran an extensive steam-hauled tour. From Strood to Paddock Wood via Maidstone West, the special was double-headed by two classic 440s, D1 31749 and L1 31786. The last regular use of steam in the immediate Maidstone area was at Aylesford Paper Mill. Here a 1952 040 Peckett saddle tank named Howe undertook a variety of internal movements within the mill complex. Although much rebuilt and modernised, this mill still produces newsprint. In recent years, preserve locos have made occasional returns, breaking the area's electric monopoly. Despite creeping modernisation, East Farley retains its classic signal box and crossing gates. In March 2006, this West Country Pacific made a spirited run through Maidstone East. Although railway electrification was very much in vogue, on the roads electric traction was in terminal decline. Although the trolleybus system still seemed relatively secure in 1961, the whole 7-mile system with its mix of vehicles would be gone within 6 years. The 5 utility sunbeams had all been given new 62-seater row bodies during 1960. Other improvements included the reversal of the anti-clockwise loop at Lewes in July 1963. This meant trolleybuses no longer had to enter the circle against the traffic flow on the busy A229. '63 prepares to pull away from the rearranged wiring. A further extension was even opened when, on the 18th of August 1963, the Parkwood Loop was extended deeper into the estate. This proved to be the last extension, as plans for an even larger Parkwood Loop had been dropped in 1962. The redundant wiring along Brishing Lane was now dismantled. On the 29th of April 1964, the council announced that their 24 trolleybuses were to be replaced over a 4-year period with 16 high-capacity Leyland Atlanteans. In reaching this decision, the council cited the increasing age of the existing fleet, the high cost of new vehicles, problems with obtaining spare parts, lack of manoeuvrability, and the much lower price for a new bus-only depot. Fortunately, this decision to do away with the trolleys failed to dampen plans to celebrate the undertaking's Diamond Jubilee, and 2 vehicles, a bus and a trolleybus, were lavishly decorated in early July 1964. A decade earlier, the same vehicle, 66, had also been decorated for the Golden Jubilee. Interestingly, no passengers were carried, the trolley simply being driven round and round the system. It did, however, carry enthusiasts. Poles down, 66 coast down Sutton Road, and then whilst an inspector holds the traffic, leans into the curve and sweeps round the wheat sheaf on full lock. Only a really experienced driver would consider that manoeuvre. The opening of Bishop's Way on the 13th of December 1964 involved the installation of new wiring. These scenes, taken 1 month earlier, show the work in progress. The new one-way road formed part of a scheme aimed at easing congestion in the town centre. After December the 12th, trolleys bound for Tonbridge Road would no longer turn from Mill Street. The loop round the Cannon was dismantled, but the westbound wiring along the High Street was retained for use by short workings to and from Queen's Monument. Bishop's Way. The wiring layout included an overhead frog set some distance from the junction with the High Street. The right-hand wires allowed vehicles to pull across before turning east onto the High Street. These next sequences, taken at different times by different filmmakers with a variety of different cameras, offer an overview of the system during the period 1965 to 1967, when trolleybus numbers were dwindling, although representatives still remained of all available types. At Barming, the loop circled the War Memorial, situated across the road from the Bull Inn. On departing, each trolley followed a set pattern, working first through to Parkwood, then back to the Fountain, then out to Lewes, and finally back to the Bull. For about 1/8 of a mile, the wiring lay outside the town boundary in the Rural District Council. Views between the Bull and the Fountain on the semi-rural section opened in 1947. action at the fountain, with good views of the wiring segments designed by one of the linesman electricians. Negotiating this tightly angled overhead required some skill, drivers having to keep within the white lines painted in the pub forecourt. Sometimes they didn't quite make it. On completing the turn successfully, the layover point was passed by a through wire, allowing vehicles from the Bull to pass on the offside. During the war, some trolleys had been parked here overnight in case the depot took a direct hit. Accommodation within the former tram depot was very cramped indeed. Under manager Kershaw's watchful eye, all Maidstone vehicles were kept in good internal and external condition. All trolleys taking up service had to reverse into the busy main road. As a result, the corporation were under considerable pressure to relocate to new premises. This additional siding outside the technical school had been erected in 1963. From here the route drops steeply towards the river. For about a quarter of a mile on either side of St Michael's Church, the trolleybuses ran through one of the more well-to-do residential neighbourhoods. Scenes in the vicinity of Maidstone West Station and the junction with busy London Road. Many elegant riverside buildings were demolished in the 1960s. Scenes on the inbound wiring. Overlooked by the White Lion, trolleys executed a sharp 90-degree turn into Knight Rider Street. Along Bishop's Way, passengers could see a mix of new and ancient buildings. Several filmmakers chose this spot to capture the non-stop parade of buses and trolleybuses. a short working turns onto the high street. This one-way outbound wiring was used by all trolleys heading for the Wheatsheaf. Bulldozers had already moved in, destroying many historic buildings. A short working turns on the loop. Passing the Golden Boot Shop on the winding Gabriel's Hill with its side bracket arms. Outbound at Wren's Cross. Views on Upper Stone Street with its mix of cottages, boarding houses, factories and small businesses. The steep in-town section of Lewes Road was flanked by some imposing terraced housing. The Wheatsheaf was another spot which attracted photographers. Here the Lewes and Sutton Road wires diverged. Trolleys could also circumnavigate the roundabout and go back into town. Watch the conductor nip smartly off to reset the frog for Sutton Road. Usually this automatic frog was preset in this direction. Views between the Wheatsheaf and Nottingham Road. Still used by a handful of short workings, Nottingham Road turning circle had been the limit of operations until May 1959. Various scenes now around the Parkwood Loop. Journey time back to the fountain, 24 minutes. Here was the point at which the outbound and inbound wires diverged. To help drivers at night, fairy lights were strung between the wires on this bend into Sutton Road. Before visiting the Lewes Road section, examples of a few contemporary tickets. Back at the Wheatsheaf. On leaving this junction, the Lewes trolleys ran for about 1.5 miles through an area of predominantly suburban housing. Now nicknamed the Goldfish because of its oval-shaped replacement panel at the front, 52 approaches the end of the line. Journey time back across town, 25 minutes. Before any replacement buses had arrived, inroads were made into the post-war sunbeams. For example, 70 was withdrawn in October 1965. Three more followed during November: 63, 69 and 73. Popular with staff and public, they had clocked up some 20 years of service. During their lifetime, only a few improvements were made to the northern coach builders' bodies, mostly in connection with improving ventilation. Also, the original pop-out semaphore signals have been replaced by modern flashers. Taking on a full load in Bishop's Way, 71 would be withdrawn in December 1965. By contrast, sister vehicle 72, the last to be overhauled and repainted, would re-enter service in January 1966. 85, the first of the Wayman-bodied Hastings, had gone in 1965. Then in April 1966, 86 and 88 were withdrawn, although 86 was fortunately returned to service in the August. In February 1967, 86 was withdrawn for the second time, along with 87. Both Hastings were then stored in the open outside the old Lewes tram depot. Soon both would leave the yard, with 86 fortunately going for preservation. Shortly afterwards, this ancient wooden building was demolished and the site is now occupied by maisonettes. On the Brighton front, 51 was withdrawn in August 1966. This left just one of the Wayman-bodied BUTs to soldier on for another 8 months. As from the 29th of January 1967, buses took over some weekday duties, although the trolleys continued covering all scheduled Sunday and bank holiday duties. The Fiesta blue and cream livery dated from arrival of the first of these massy-bodied Leyland Atlanteans in late 1965. In late March came the announcement that trolleybus operation was to end on Saturday, April the 15th. As the management had always welcomed responsible enthusiasts, there were a number of special tours during the final 3 months. However, the most significant was held on the 2nd of April. Organised by the Maidstone Grammar School Transport Society, it covered every bit of available wiring, albeit on a somewhat gloomy day. 66 had of course been decorated for the 2 Jubilee celebrations. In the background, the British Road Services Maidstone Depot. For the upcoming closure, it was the turn of 72 to be suitably adorned with flags and bunting. Inscribed as Maidstone's last trolleybus, it made daily tours of the system for most of the week beginning Sunday the 9th of April. However, it was usually taken straight back to the depot at the first hint of rain. No passengers were carried except for a short tour on the 9th of April and also on the very final run. 72 had also been earmarked by the corporation for preservation. On Thursday the 13th of April, 72 suffered a mechanical breakdown and had to be rescued by the towing vehicle. This was former Guy Arab number 61 of 1945. 72 was soon back on the road with a replacement motor removed from number 64. On the final Saturday, those in the know covered some of the more unusual duties, for example the 2 short workings to Grove Road. A short distance away, another short working turned at Nottingham Avenue. And there were also several trips to the top of the High Street, which then ran round the Queen's Monument. Sadly, Goldfish 52, the only surviving Brighton, broke down during the morning and had to be taken out of service. As dusk fell, only a few hours remained. Soon there really would be no trolleys to lose. At 11:30, 54, accompanied by 72, carrying various civic dignitaries, made the last ceremonial journey from the town hall. 39 years of trolleybus operation had come to an end. Within weeks, the redundant trolleys had all gone for scrap. Days earlier, 68, seen here, had made the last ever journey to the Wheatsheaf and along Lewes Road. The chassis under the 5 rebodied vehicles have been on the Maidstone streets for 26 years. One of this group, 56, escaped into preservation. Over the years, surviving elements of the trolleybus era have vanished, including Tonbridge Road Depot, vacated by the Transport Department in January 1969 and subsequently demolished in early 2001. Now this site is occupied by the Coachyard block of flats. However, in a gesture to the past, some of the tram rails have been retained. As local people know, the Medway does have a tendency to flood. These scenes, taken in October 1968, show a variety of vehicles surfing the river, including an extraordinary temporary people carrier. Most of the fleet of Leyland PD2s, all now in Fiesta Blue livery, would pass to Maidstone Borough Council in 1974. Withdrawals continued throughout the 70s, but number 26 was eventually preserved. The rear-engined Atlanteans proved to be the last double-deckers to be purchased by Maidstone Corporation. Starting in 1969, they had been converted to one-man operation. Then, in 1974, all 28, the newest dating from 1972, would pass to the Borough Council. Their decision to concentrate on lightweight single-deckers led to their rapid disposal. The sale of these vehicles brought to an end the story of Maidstone Corporation's buses and trolleybuses. Four trolleybuses which operated in Maidstone still exist today. One of these, 56, took part in a tour of the dwindling Cardiff network on the 13th of April 1969, virtually 2 years to the day after its own system had turned off the power. Over 3 decades later, and this time in tandem with number 72, 56 was decorated in true Maidstone fashion for the Queen's Golden Jubilee. In this guise, both trolleys ran at the Sandtoft Transport Museum in 2002. The other survivors, ex-Hastings 86 and ex-Brighton 52, are housed at the East Anglia Transport Museum, Carlton Colville. All these survivors provide us with a reminder of the swift, silent, popular, pollution-free trolleybuses which had served Maidstone and many other towns and cities for so many years.